What's up, folks? Moon here, talking about Battleground Blitz today. Man, this mode has not even been out 2 weeks yet, and already we've got some interesting takes about the new mode. So today I just wanted to do a little unscripted video talking about my own experience with the mode and going over some of the common criticisms I've been seeing. Some people have been having just insane crash outs, so I know I'll have to be careful about how I title the video because I don't want to attract the wrong crowd, or maybe I do end up ruffling some feathers and make a few enemies just by keeping it real. But without further ado, let's just jump right into it. So as y'all know, I'm a WoW PvP content creator. Eventually I'd like to do more PvE stuff too, because I've been finding that to be exceptionally fun. But people have been asking me how I've been enjoying Battleground Blitz, considering so much of my recent content library is focused around creating guides, strategies, tips, tactics, all that good stuff for this mode. And truth be told is that my placement games were some of the most brutal games of World of Warcraft Battlegrounds that I have ever played, and man did I want to commit some war crimes that I think would get me demonetized if I said what I wanted to do. Because I spend about 9 to 12 hours on every single guide that I make per map, so I spend a lot of time thinking about strategies, doing research, making sure all my information's correct. And then I go into a game where not only does my team do the complete opposite of that, but they tell me to fuck myself for even suggesting that we play the objective or do anything but death ball in the middle of a capture the flag map. And I'll admit, it's frustrating too, because you have players like myself, or maybe some of the more dedicated viewers out there who've been spending months excited in anticipation for this new mode. Maybe you played it back in Dragonflight, maybe you played it during the pre-patch, and so you already know a little bit of what's going on and what to expect, but you're also playing the game with people who this is their first expansion playing the new mode, and they have never touched Battleground Blitz before in their life. Maybe they're a new player, maybe they're a PvE player, they heard that this was going to be the spot for PvP. So you do have to give them some grace, at least in your placements, and understand that with the law of averages and the 30-30-40 rule, you are eventually going to have enough of an impact on your games to be able to climb out. My good friend Mortai actually posted some photos of people who were able to climb out of the 1600 bracket. They're hanging out around 1800, 1900 right now, but they are climbing even with a negative win rate, because it's not necessarily a matter of winning the majority of your games, it's winning the games that matters just due to the way that MMR works. We can go on a whole different video about that, but I'll get back to the main story. So yes, it was very frustrating getting through my placement games, but after about 20 games, I noticed that my MMR was drastically rising and the quality of game that I was experiencing was significantly better. The games were getting more intense, the games were getting more close, the individual plays were meaning a lot more. And eventually, when I got to the higher MMR that I'm at now, I'm currently between 2500 and 2650 MMR. These have been some of the best Battlegrounds I've ever played, just like ever. It's been very fun. Everybody knows what they're doing, and people aren't as toxic in the chat. Unfortunately, people have this misconception that high MMR means that the players get less toxic, and that's just not true. You see, at 1600 to 1800, there's a lot of players who just generally are not known by the player base at large, so they really don't have anything to lose when they're telling you to kill yourself in chat. Whereas a lot of the games at the higher end of the ladder, you should just expect that they're going to be streamed or recorded or some form. And so people try to save face, at least when it comes to text chat, but the reality is that in their stream to their like 30 or 40 viewers is where they're telling you to kill yourself at. So I wanted to make that brief distinction there. That the toxicity doesn't necessarily go away, but for the most part, people are more chill, I would say, once you get to like the 1800, 1900 range. And contrary to popular belief, the majority of players who play this game do want to win their game. So this leads me to the current topic of today, which is that I have been seeing a ton of forum posts, of Reddit posts, you name it, of players just talking about how this game mode is shit, this game mode is awful, it's the worst thing to happen to the War Within, Blizzard should have canceled this immediately, and they should force us all to be arena players. And look, if you have that opinion, I'm not going to completely fault you for it. I will say that I completely disagree with that take, and I think it's a really bad opinion to hold, but so long as you're able to back it up, I can at least respect it. And so I then go and look these players up, and I see that they have less than 10 games played. Brother, you are still in your placements. You have not even gotten to the good stuff yet. The game is still trying to figure out where the hell it's trying to put you at. So it's not even necessarily that there are like massive design flaws with the game. Granted, I have some criticisms of BGB, but I don't think it's nearly as bad as like Solo Shuffle was, because Blizzard's had more time to refine their vision of a solo queue mode, and due to the nature of it being Battlegrounds, where everybody's on the same ladder, it's not like a healer and DPS ladder, I think that it's an overall easier thing to implement. Now, if we actually look at this criticism and get to the meat and potatoes of what these people are trying to say, we can address each of those points individually. The main one that I'm seeing is that Battleground Blitz is bad because my teammates are bad. And the thing is, there's a little bit more nuance with that, because yes, bad teammates will happen. It's an inevitable feature of this game. If you look at the top players, they have win rates of about 75-ish% of the game, which means they will just flat up lose at least a quarter of their games, right? Nobody is perfect. Sometimes you will just lose a game outright by getting an unlucky team composition for the map that you are playing on. And those games can be really unfun. Or if you have a teammate that has a role which carries a greater weight of impact on the game, like a stealth class like a rogue, and that player is absolutely fumbling the bag, it can be very frustrating to deal with. But the thing is, to every problem there is a solution, so let's talk about the mindset aspect of it first. So regarding mindset, if you simply just play enough games, if you simply just keep playing the game enough, you will eventually have games where the fumbling player is on the enemy team, and it's like you will be handed a free win. But the other thing that a lot of players completely are not taking advantage of is strat calling. You see, I would say above like the 1500 rating threshold, the majority of players who are playing this mode do want to win the game, and I think a lot of people would be open to following somebody else calling the strategy, so long as it's done so in a way that doesn't seem dickish. And even though I've duo queued for a few of my games, the overwhelming majority of my games throughout my climbing journey have been just myself solo queuing as an off-meta healer. But the way that I've been able to get so many wins and maintain a win rate of about 67% is in the beginning of the lobby. If nobody has an immediate plan of what they want to do, I will end up calling the strategy for my team. Because I have this foundation of macro play and a good idea of what should be going on in the map, what people should be doing, if I'm delegating roles to my teammates and they are receptive to it, which the majority of the time they are, we will automatically have an advantage over the enemy team because we are playing with a coordinated strategy in mind, whereas the other team may end up just be playing free-for-all. And you would be surprised as to how many games you actually can win just by communicating with your team in that critical 2-minute window before the game starts. There were some other criticisms of the game, some of which I do agree with, like the Master of Harmony Mistweavers being able to fly across the map. I do think that's a little bit scuffed, but there are some other takes as well that I completely disagree with and feel like it's a skill issue. One of which is being that healers are unkillable. As a healer myself, there are certain classes that I feel like I can live against forever, but in these higher MMR games, it's like a Fury Warrior or an Assassination Rogue looks at me and I die. And I really don't think that people in lower to middle MMR are utilizing their Mortal Strike effects or their crowd control effects nearly enough on healers to be able to secure kills on them, which is likely where that frustration is coming from. I mean, but really, if people just sort of have that mentality, that mindset, you can't do a whole lot to change it. They're gonna have to do some self-reflection if they want any hope of becoming better at the game or increasing their rating. So on top of having my main who's currently sitting somewhere around Rival 2 with like 2500 MMR, I am playing two alternate characters at the moment. I do have my alt shaman who's about 1900 MMR, about 1600 rating, and then I've got my Mistweaver who's still in placement games. So as I'm talking about this and comparing the differences between the MMR brackets, do note that I know what it's like to play at that lower to middle MMR rating, and I do understand the frustration that is felt by having teammates completely ignore objectives. My good friend Clam Chowdy, who you may have seen him on TikTok, whenever we're playing on alts, it's funny because I find that both of us get more frustrated at the lower MMR than we do higher MMR, because the mistakes that are made are just so much more blatant and obvious. But I can guarantee for the majority of players, regardless of what degree your microplay ability is currently at, I feel like the majority of players can climb in this mode if they really expand their knowledge on macroplay, record their games more often, look back at the footage, see what mistakes are happening, and just getting that solid foundation to build on. And the thing is, I actually don't hate Arena. You know, I was playing Arena for a long while before I got into the Battleground Blitz content, and it taught me so much about my class, about the microplay aspect, about the limits that Restoration Shaman even has. And I think if you can expand on your microplay too, whether it be via playing arena, or practicing on a target dummy, or doing duels, that will allow more plays to open up that previously would not be available if you're just taking like the safer play option every time. And there are games that I've played this season so far where I have had to take a riskier play where I've literally as a healer 1v1'd a mage and ended up securing a base that would win the game for us because I have an idea of how my class plays against other classes. And I know that it's not worth it to get upset over like the forums or Reddit or anything like that because it's really not a good reflection of what the PvP community actually thinks. And this is why before even making this video, I decided to do my own poll on my own channel. And granted, you know, the sample size is small and everything, but this gave me a more what I would say accurate representation was of how people are feeling about the new mode. And even if my audience is a little bit biased towards, you know, self-improvement, getting better at the game, and really growing our skills, I'm still at least happy that the overall reception of the new mode is pretty good. I think it's been very awesome for the game. I think it's been great at cultivating a new audience for PvP that previously wasn't available. And there have been times where PvP has been awful and I have made videos about it, and unfortunately those are the videos that do well because, you know, engagement farming, people will comment whenever they're frustrated. But at least for the War Within, and at least for this mode specifically, I think Blizzard has overall done a pretty good job on the implementation of Battleground Blitz. So that's all for today, folks. If you enjoy this style of content, it would mean a lot if you could support my channel. We're actually so close to 1,000 subscribers. I don't even know what I want to do to celebrate that yet. But until next time, this is Moon, playing Battleground Blitz, and signing out.